So we're recording.
Awesome.
Okay. um. So it looks like everyone's on the Google Doc. Yeah. Okay. So, let's take turns talking about the points we identified, both the overt references and the more subtle ones. Okay, so right off the bat, let's see. I have some notes on it. Let me pull up my notes.
I feel like totally useless because I watched the wrong video right now.
It's okay.
But I have the reading pulled up, so hopefully it can help.
Yeah, it's okay. So right off the bat, I have that they attacked, not really attacked, but I felt like it was kind of an attack. The concerns about the son. So the son's name is Jimmy. And right off the bat, they said he's never home and he's being super selfish. And I think I kind of got confused between the mom and the sister because that was kind of confusing. They looked the same to me. And they said that his absence at home and disobedience in the family since he graduated high school is like their biggest concern. And like right away, they were like, kind of like, it's Jimmy, like it's Jimmy's fault. So I thought that was not very subtle. It was very like attacking.
Yeah. So was the son there listening to them talk about this?
What was that?
Was the son there listening to them say all
Yeah,
this?
so it was like the family. So it was the mom, the dad, and then Jimmy, and then the sister. I can't remember their names.
Yeah. So like full on attack because he's like listening to everything.
Yeah, and he's like right there.
Well, yeah, it was interesting because I was watching kind of like their body language and stuff while they were in there because I didn't realize it was like a real family at first. I thought they were like students role playing because they do all look like the same age. It was weird.
Yeah.
But like, the mom and dad didn't even sit together at first. They sat, like their daughter was in between them. And then you could just tell like the son they were talking about the whole time. He looked kind of nervous and fidgety the whole time. And then the mom was also fidgety. She was just moving her hands the whole time. She was pretty nervous. But yeah, it was just interesting watching their body language. And then the therapist, he actually moved them. So like he moved the daughter away, so out of the middle, so the dad could sit next to his wife and like put them together. And like he would just move people around to see if that would help them, I guess, open up more maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that helps like with the parents like being more unified together. And I think that gives security to children when they don't see their parents separated, that they have to pick sides. I think like psychologically the child can see that their parents are, it gives like a sense of security. Right, even though they're afraid, but mom and dad are together and they're both saying the same thing. And even though kids, when they become rebellious, they still want to know that there's that security and that foundation. So that's what I kind of.
Oh, where'd she go?
Well,
okay.
Well, just from what you guys are saying, it sounds to me like maybe before this situation, like their communication wasn't good. And so they just first off like felt super uncomfortable like talking about things that were personal to them because they weren't used to communicating. And I think the therapist probably realized that and then chose like, okay, maybe if I make them feel comfortable, like later on in the meeting, they'll be able to like openly communicate because they feel like they're next to someone that they trust and that they can talk about these things without being judged. So
yeah, because I thought that maybe the parents, well, with this certain situation with their son, and I don't know why my face never goes big. I don't know. Sorry, when I talk. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. Sorry, it never goes. I don't know.
You can make it so you can see everyone at the same time. I don't know if you.
Oh, because yeah, like there's like us four at the top, and then whoever's talking goes big in there.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know. Anyway, but so with the dad, he was kind of more on the side of his son, because so the son, he's like 18, he's acting out, he just hangs out really late with his friends, and his parents don't like that, because they don't know where he is. He doesn't respond to their calls. He gets home at like 2 or 3 a.m. in the morning. And so his mom's just really worried because she thinks that he like could be dead or something. But the dad, he's not as stressed out about it, it seems, as the mom is. She's really worried about it, and that's, she gets mad at the son because he doesn't cooperate with them. He doesn't listen to her, so she gets really upset. The dad's like, she goes crazy. Like, she just loses it with him. So I thought like maybe their marriage wasn't doing that well, because, well, in this class it's always like the marriage is primary, like that is the relationship that needs to be really good in a family unit. So it was interesting to see how the parents were kind of not on the same page together with that situation. They both had different thoughts about it. And I don't know if that was interesting.
Yeah. I'm just taking notes.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
So maybe like they just right off the bat didn't want to sit next to each other just because they knew that maybe they would disagree with things that they were talking about.
Yeah. There's tension.
And then the therapist was like, well, maybe if they put them together and they feel that like connection of husband and wife, then they'll be able to like see each other's points of views rather than like feel different about everything they're talking about.
Yeah, I think with that, like the biggest thing when you're communicating is seeing people's body language and how they're kind of reacting. And if you're not sitting next to each other and you're not seeing, you're just hearing what they're saying, it's kind of hard to tell like everything sometimes. I don't know. You might interpret it wrong. Okay. Well, those are some pretty, yeah. So I don't know, in the recording, they can't see the Google Doc, but, so in the Google Doc, it shows like, I put like the, some of the references that we talked about. And then I put down the communication between the parents probably weren't great. Because that was kind of a subtle thing that we caught on. Was there anything else that maybe was like a subtle?
Well, I think that when you know, the mother is over worried, and then the father is very like disconnected. And I think a lot of times, from what I've seen, is that men will just kind of let the wife handle and take care of things, because even if the father is concerned and shows concern and wants to give advice or examples or even discipline, there's usually like a fight with the husband and wife, because the wife, even though she wants to discipline her child, she's still protecting her child at the same time, even from her husband. So I think that causes a lot of separation and detachment, and which leaves fathers being less involved in their children, not all of them, and also leaving the wife more emotionally raw, because he can't support her emotionally because he doesn't feel respected. And so I've seen or noticed that. So them sitting apart and him not really saying anything and her being overly, it just seems like a subtlety in that, showing they're married, they're husband and wife, they're still together, but they don't have it just shows no solidarity in even child rearing or the way they think. Yeah,
I think that's a good point too, because like also when they talk about how, well, Jimmy brings up, he says, I don't know why it's a big deal why I'm gone all the time, because dad's gone all the time too. And so like maybe he doesn't feel like he knows how to handle the situation, so he does the same thing as the son, and they both kind of run away from it, and they just hide from their emotions and hide from like showing it as much of like, as the mom and the daughter are like, they're like, well, this is how we feel, and the guys are like, we don't really share our feelings. Like it's more of like like how men and women kind of share their emotions and show things differently.
That's interesting. I'm thinking about what CLO, is that how you say it?
Yes, yellow, yes.
Yeah. Think about what she said, with like the fact that the mother is like torn between wanting to protect her child and discipline her child, and then, you know, the husband maybe has other ways of doing it. Maybe like subtly, you know, maybe it's not true, but maybe like a cause for their rift in relationship could have been like the son's behavior, because maybe they know how to handle things together before, but this is something like totally different, like the rebellion or a rebellious child, like that makes them not know how to react, and then they might both have different ideas about it, and then that causes like the awkwardness between them and between the whole family.
Absolutely, I agree. I agree that every parent that I know, I don't have kids, but whether they have 2 kids, 1 kid, or 6 kids, every child, even though the youngest and they've already raised 5, it's still a new experience because that child is a different person, and then they're different. You know, as they're older, they may let, you know, the younger ones have more freedom, not be as worried, but it's always the first couple. And then children where parents seem to be more overprotective. Yeah, I think it's new, whether you've done it 1 time or 15 times. It's because it's different people, and then we're all at different stages too.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good point, hon.
It's interesting though, like it's good that the whole family was there for that session, because even though it was all kind of about their son, he was still there. He was still sharing his thoughts, his emotions he was having. He was still able to participate and just share what was on his mind and his side of things. But it was also, I don't know, I couldn't get a real good feeling about the family, because yeah, it looked like the parents did have a little, I don't know, issue about the thing that was going on, or I had a baby a week ago, so I don't know how he's.
Congratulations. What's his name?
His name's Kason.
Oh, congratulations, honey.
Thank you.
You're so young, so beautiful, all of you. So lovely. Congratulations.
Yeah, just so you know. No. So yeah, the parents, they seemed kind of not on the same page about that topic, but then the dad would also grab the mom's hand, like they would still hold hands. He put his arm around her, so they were still showing signs that they cared about each other, but it just seemed like the communication for the whole family was kind of off. They didn't know, like they weren't able to communicate the right way, it seemed like.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, it was weird.
Okay, sorry, I'm writing that down. Okay. So those are pretty good answers, I think. So then the next question says, note the trends of your findings as a group. Did everyone identify the same points, or were there points that not everyone caught? I feel like we kind of identified similar points.
I think so, yes.
Communication is a big point that everyone seems to identify. I mean,
I don't know what to put for that. I don't know if we're supposed to specifically answer it.
Yeah.
Is that just referring like the other ones we just talked about, or?
So, yeah, I think it's more of kind of like a discussion question. So maybe like not something we answer, but just to keep us like discussing.
Oh, okay.
Maybe. I can go back and kind of put like a few things we talked about from the references too. So like communication, we kind of talked about how we like saw communication and how like we all kind of realized that it wasn't just like a son issue, like with their son, it was kind of more, there was more like relationships that were like being like having issues. So like the marriage or like the relationship between like the brother and the sister, stuff like that. So let's see. Okay, I'm just writing that down so I can remember that. Okay. Let's see. So talk about our observations. Was anyone surprised by the findings or observations? Okay, let's see.
So
I thought it was interesting how, so there was this one point in the video, and they talked about how it kind of came around to how, I don't know how to explain it. They all interpreted each other's feelings, like, before talking to them about what was going on. So, like, the son, so Jimmy kind of said, I don't like the fighting, and they all agreed that they didn't like the fighting in the family, but they all thought that Jimmy was leaving and gone all the time because he just didn't want to be with them and that he didn't care about them as much. But like, his actual reasoning when they talked about their feelings was that he was leaving because he cared so much about them, but he didn't feel that they cared about him. So, like, everyone in the family kind of came to this loop of, like, well, you're doing this, so you must not care about me. But in his mind, he's like, I'm doing this because I do care, and I don't want to be around the fighting. I just want everyone to be happy, kind of a thing. I don't know if that makes sense. So basically, like, every single family member seemed to kind of jump to conclusions rather than talking to each other about, like, hey, like, why are you leaving? Like, why are you gone all the time? And if they would have just asked that, Jimmy would have said, like, I'm gone because, like, you guys are fighting. I feel like I'm just creating issues, and I care about you, and I don't want to create the issues, so I'm leaving, so I'm not being an issue. But that wasn't, like, the case. Like,
Yeah.
So I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah,
that was an interesting observation.
Good point.
Mhm.
I thought that too, like when he's like, I feel like you don't love me, but his parents are so concerned about him because they love him so much. It was weird that he took it that way. But yeah, at the end of the meeting, the mom was like, my eyes have been really opened. Like, I'm really glad we were able to talk about these things because now they know kind of what more is going on with their son. And I don't know. I think with them, they just have been trying to use the same coping strategies. Like, they haven't been able to find one that really works. They just get in the same routine and just keep doing it over and over again. And so that's why they haven't really gotten out of the stressor event or whatever.
Yeah.
They're still not able to move on or help their son feel more loved, I guess, because they just do the same thing over and over again. Like, the son just stays out late, mom overreacts, and then it's just a repeat cycle. So they should try different strategies and see what works better.
Yeah.
It seems like a good strategy that they just did in this situation is get a therapist, like, finally, like, sit down and have someone force them to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just looking over the transcript right now of it. And the beginning is like a ton of just like conversation, just regular conversation. The therapist is like trying to see like where they're at just in general. Anything that goes back to like see how their communication is, like see how comfortable they are talking about things. And then that helped them open up a ton, like when they start talking about the more difficult things. So I think that I agree with you, Caslin, that like they definitely like realized that they needed a different change. And so I think it was good that they got a therapist, like someone that obviously knows what they're doing, that forced them to talk about these things openly. And who knows, maybe like their communication later was better because they had learned like how to open up in front of a stranger, and hopefully that helps them.
Right, to have the conversation guided, right, and somebody to listen for everybody, to point out things that, well, maybe what he's trying to say, what she's trying to say, and just be like a witness also to their family dynamic really helps a lot, especially we can trust somebody. And
yeah, that's good. I think because like the therapist there kind of was saying like, oh, how does that make you feel, how does that make you feel, and it kind of helps them to like, they just really open up that way, like having someone really get their perspective and guide the conversation that way.
Yeah, because I know if my family have a fight or have a heavy discussion, no one's saying, well, how do you feel about that? Well, in a loving way, and having some kind of guidelines for someone to say, hey, wait, let's take time out, let's be respectful here, or
And one thing the therapist did a lot after the family explained something or after I asked him a question and they answered, he's like, okay, so if I'm understanding, this is what you're saying. So he just was able to repeat what they were saying, just making sure he understands what's going on. So that way everyone's on the same page. Everyone is understanding like what is actually being, what they're trying to say, I guess.
Yeah. And also what's being understood.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So what you're saying is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So what you mean is.
Let's see. Okay.
Oh, sorry. Going along just with that still, I like that the therapist like asked them individually why they were like, why that he was brought in, like why they were. He says like, what's bringing the family in here? Why are you guys coming to talk? And then the daughter's like talking about how she feels about her brother, and then the mom's like, well, this is what's making me think, and the dad, you know, it's like even from the get-go he like lets them all say exactly what they're thinking so he can understand like where to take the conversation. I admired that about it.
Yeah, I like that too. Okay, so those are some good observations. Does anyone have any like other observations before we move on? I think we're good. Okay, so then the last thing says discuss and record how a treatment professional or paraprofessional might prepare to capitalize on such opportunities to introduce or reinforce the types of resiliency factors from Walsh's article.
So one thing, I have the article pulled up and I was like looking over it while we were talking.
Mhm.
And one thing that is one of like the communication processes, like how to solve problems with communication, is emotional sharing and positive interactions. And that's like exactly what a therapist does. Like he forces you to like open up your mind and like share your emotions, and like everyone gets to do it. And then obviously like at the end the mom's like, this was great for us, like it's a positive thing that they realize like, okay, maybe talking about this is good. And that helps them see for the future like communication is good if you do it the right way, and it's just important to have someone the first time. So that's why it's good sometimes to get a professional in if you don't know maybe how to communicate correctly.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And I think even if like they are communicating, like if they're having this recurring problem, maybe they didn't always have a problem, but maybe all of a sudden like with this certain situation, if like the parents aren't agreeing, then that can cause a problem on communication. And so maybe just for this specific like issue, maybe they just need more help and guidance for it.
Right. And you know, I think that maybe setting a plan, like in some other readings where, you know, maybe on Monday night or Wednesday night, family home evening, we take time to, if anyone has any questions or problems or concerns, is to kind of set up while everyone's kind of feeling good and safe together with somebody else in the room, like the therapist, to come to an agreement of, okay, what's a plan that we can make today together for when we need to talk about things, hold a family meeting, or you know, every Sunday, or family council, family council, right? And to make a plan while you're there, while everyone's feeling uplifted and positive and heard, and to so I think that's an important thing too, to make a plan while you're there, however little it is, to start making changes.
Yeah, and I like that you mentioned to do it like once a week maybe, because a habit of it is really good, because things like that are kind of really difficult at the beginning, you know, especially if you have like excuse me, communication problems. Like I think, for example, like on serving a mission, like a companionship inventory where like once a week you have to like maybe talk about things that like aren't going well or are going well with your companionship. And like the first couple times it's like super awkward because you like don't want to feel so vulnerable, but it's a habit, like you have to do it all the time. So later on you become comfortable with like throughout the week thinking of things that you can improve or thinking of things that you like. And so maybe doing it every Monday or every Sunday, like you realize you have time through the week to think about it, and then you know your thoughts will be heard.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important to like set a habit of doing that.
Did you do that on your mission? Did you?
Yeah, all the time.
Oh, okay, yeah. So my family, we do that on Sundays. We have family meeting during, right as we're finishing Sunday dinner. Now, what's going on, my nieces and nephews like, oh, somebody to take out the trash, or I always have to do this. And in the beginning, it's really very picky, right? It seems to be very picky on what somebody else is doing and not doing. But then what I've noticed is as the weeks go on, it starts to become more profound what's being brought up, and less of it. So maybe in the beginning it's like, oh, well, my niece Emily, she never picks up the dog poop and whatever, right? She doesn't put dishes away. And then as the weeks go by, it's, well, Dad doesn't really listen to me when I came and talked to him. Mom seems to kind of ignore me. So the depth of the conversation and what they're needing becomes deeper. And I think because as the weeks go on, everyone starts developing more trust in that process, that nobody judges or yells. Everyone agrees to listen, and everyone has a turn to talk, and then everyone has a turn to respond, but it's never in a mean way. And then what happens is, I'm really sorry, I didn't know that bothered you. But I just kind of found that was interesting. So it's less complaining, but what is talked about after several weeks seems to be more profound and deeper on the relationship level. I just wanted to share that. I don't know if you came across that, hon, when you were on your mission, if you ladies did, that at first it was like, well, they don't pick up their towel, and then it's like, I don't know. But anyway, I just wanted to say that I noticed that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've done that with our family as well. And I think that's the most important thing that you kind of said, is that it becomes a safe space. After a while, you realize, like, no one's going to judge me, no one's going to yell at me, no one's going to hold this against me, but it's like a perfect time to openly talk about my feelings and know that I'll be heard.
Yeah.
And every family should have moments like that where they know that it's safe and they can be comfortable talking about stuff. And it's really important.
Kind of going off of that, in the reading it talks about like having the spiritual side of whatever it's talking about anyway. But in the video, the therapist said, he's like, I believe that all parents receive some form of guidance, even if you're not a believer in God or anything. I think all parents receive that help, or that maybe revelation in some ways, to help their family, because parents, they're doing good things, they're being parents, they're raising children. So to think God would help them somehow, even if they weren't really believing or things. So I thought that was interesting.
Right.
You said that during that interview, or that
is super interesting.
Let's see. I'm just looking at my notes real quick. Okay, so from the reading, I took a quote. I was just going over it to make sure it can work. So it said, we explore, for instance, how the timing of a family member's emotional or behavioral problems might be connected with highly stressful events. Frequently, child behavior or school problems coincide with anxiety-provoking transitions or losses. And then it goes into like parental separation, incarceration, migration, or military deployment, which also involve family boundary shifts and role realignment. So I don't think that family was like really experiencing any like major things like a loss or anything. I think maybe they would fall under a little bit of the parental separation. But I think like a professional point of view for that, maybe, so the timing of a family member's emotional behavioral problems, so their son started like going out and being gone all the time, and that could connect to him. They said he just graduated high school, right?
Yeah.
So maybe he doesn't know what his future holds. He doesn't know how or what to do. Maybe like this, like the next college semester is coming up when he should be starting college, and maybe that's like a problem. Maybe there's like more problems when it comes to school. He doesn't know what he's supposed to do. Maybe his parents haven't guided him in like where he should go to college or if he should go to like a trade school or anything. That was one thing I thought of from that reading, from that little portion. Maybe he's experiencing like this anxiety all of a sudden from graduating, and he doesn't know what to do, and his parents aren't helping him. So maybe that could be like an issue that like a professional might be able to kind of touch on and like see if that's part of the problem. Because it sounds like he's just hanging out with friends all the time or just leaving. So I wasn't sure if that was something maybe.
No, I think that's great because I think, at the same time, when you don't know what to do, at the same time, you can do anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. So graduating high school, hey, I'm done with high school. I'm over 18. I can do what I want. Right. You can do anything and everything. And sometimes that's really doing nothing, right? Like he's just hanging out with his friends and whatever. But I think that the mindset as a young person is, well, I can do anything I want. I don't need to answer to my parents. And yeah, so I think that's right. There's no guidance. Just what he needs to do now as an adult and some boundaries.
Yeah.
There for him, even because he's still living at home. So it still needs to be respectful. Yeah.
Yeah, and he should maybe be working to save for college, or they should be helping him.
Find a job or set a boundary. It's okay if you're out, but you need to be home by 1 a.m. We know you're an adult, but this is our home, and we want to know you're safe. And
through the video, they kind of talked about that, and they kind of made him see like why his mom was so worried about him being out so late. And so he kind of realized like, oh, I shouldn't do that maybe. And so that can, like, the way the therapist helped him was if like they can set boundaries and he can understand why they're setting the boundaries more than just he's an adult, he can do what he wants. But
right. I think as I became an adult, I do less of actually what I want.
Okay. Does anyone have anything else to add for that question? I don't know if you guys can still see the Google Doc. I've just been typing all the answers that we've been talking about.
Yeah, I've been watching it. It's awesome.
Okay. So I think that's pretty good. We got through all those questions. They did good at explaining all those. I put everyone's name at the top. And then I'm gonna leave the Google Doc open. I feel like I did pretty good. I don't know if there's anything you guys want to add. Maybe feel like, I don't know. But I can submit it like Friday or Saturday. I think it's due Saturday.
So do you want us all to like choose a question and write it out, or should we just add things that we've noticed, or like leave it how it is? How do you want us to do this?
I don't know. Let me look in the directions real quick.
Like with what you've written, bullet point style, is that enough, or do we need to write it out in like complete sentences?
That's a good question.
Because we can all do that, or like I think what you wrote is great.
Yeah.
Throughout the week, we can maybe just add anything else we think, and then you could submit that.
Let's see. So,
it doesn't really give specifics. Oh, sorry.
No, you're good. Designate another person to compose a brief summary of the group's overall findings, observations, and conclusions based on the post-video discussion. So do we have to do that after this meeting?
Oh, like on the discussion.
Okay. So we do like designate a group member to submit your summary, and then, so I don't know if we like submit this. I think we can submit this because it's kind of the summary of what we talked about. I think that's kind of the summary. So I kind of did that. I
So we
mean, it's
didn't
not like,
figure out anything.
it's like bulleted, but I can go back and like fix that like pretty easily.
Okay.
We could probably email too and ask her before, because we have till Saturday.
Yeah.
So we can probably just do that. And then I think there's like a discussion board we can also talk on.
Well, it
Yeah.
says the final version of the summary should be a Word document, and that it should share. It should just be the work produced like from talking about everything.
Okay.
So
probably just convert it to
Word and
yeah.
Yeah, and one person would submit the link and the.
Yeah.
So are you gonna do that?
Yeah, I can do that. I think I can stop the record. I'll stop the recording. And then it'll save.